right, well, good evening, and welcome to our regularly scheduled meeting of the Wooster City Council being held this Monday, April 1st, 2024. Tonight's meeting is in council chambers and live stream on YouTube, and it is after 7:30, and the next regularly scheduled council meeting will be April 15th of 2024. Ms. Hamilton, will you please call the roll on for the council members?
Mr. Abernathy.
Here.
Mr. Gaffey.
Here.
Mr. Huzay.
Here.
Ms. Knappich.
Here.
Mr. Malta.
Here.
Mr. Myers.
Here.
Ms. Warden. Here.
All right, well, everyone is here and we have a quorum. The agenda will remain as presented. At this time, I'll ask you to stand and join the members of the council in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I can have a motion from council for the approval of the minutes from our March 18th meeting.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Abernathy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gaffey. All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, motion's approved. Communications from the Mayor Administration. Mr. Reynolds, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. President. And good evening to you as well. I do have some communications. I don't know that we've had this in the past, but just today we received a certificate from the Ohio Senate signed by Senator Matt Huffman, who's president of the Senate, and Senator Al Landis, who is our senator for the 31st District, and a separate certificate from Governor Mike DeWine and Lieutenant Governor John Husted, both with regards to our micropolitan standing, our award. So basically the same recognition from two different branches of the government, but very nice. We'll put those in an appropriate place upstairs, and if anybody wants to see it afterwards, but just very nice. Congratulations to all involved in that. Just a recap. Last couple of weeks, things have settled down a little bit. I don't know if it was because of the Easter holiday and people taking time off, but we did a trip to Findlay. I think we told you about that before, but this is again in connection with that micropolitan ranking. Findlay was the #1 ranked community for that. So I think Jonathan and Phil Tursky and I made the trip. We were supported by Mary Beth Burns from the WDC and Kevin Hare. And the best comparison I can make, it was a very nice event. Findlay obviously put a lot of work into hosting it. They were great hosts, and everybody thanked them profusely for all the work they did. And I kept thinking, well, geez, if we were #1, we'd be happy to do all that work. It was very much like being going to somebody else's wedding and being the bridesmaid. We had a lot of photo ops where we were like in the background of Findlay getting recognized for things. So all in all, it was a nice event. It was nice to be included, but I wish we finished a little higher up than we did, and that's something to shoot for going forward. We had a retirement for Kevin Gibbons. I know some of you were able to stop in on that. Kevin is finally retiring, and we are in the process of interviewing a replacement for him, so that process is moving along. And then on the same note, Bill Sharon announced previously that he is retiring, but he probably had his last board meeting last week, and it's been announced that Scott Boyes is moving into that position. Scott's been the CFO, so what that has opened up now is we're in the process of interviewing CFO candidates for that position. So we'll see how that goes. A lot of things going there. Tonight's agenda, I had not a whole lot to say on that because we did not have enough to suspend the rules last week or last meeting. We have a number of items that are set for second reading. We only have 3 items that Barb Knappich is sponsoring that'll be on first reading. I won't go into too much detail on that. One of them is the ordinance to reduce the increase the bidding threshold. I talked about that at some length last week. I won't bore you again with that. Second thing is part to do with the expansion of the facilities at Freelander Chalet to include an outdoor patio. And I know Barb and both Ashley Hirschberg will be speaking a little bit about that. And third is the recreational marijuana zoning ordinance that will be here for first reading as well. The only thing I do want to touch on at a little bit of length is last week, and again last week, 2 weeks ago, last meeting, we brought before you 5 separate pieces of legislation dealing with bond issuance. And it was, as pointed out appropriately so, it was a lot of money. Probably, this is very unscientific research, but just asking around, probably the biggest ask that we've ever had at one time. Surely not the most indebtedness we've ever had out at one time, but the total ask is just shy of $18 million. And it is cause to sit up and ask, okay, what are we doing here? Let's look at this a little more closely. So I thought I'd try to break that down a little bit. So even though there's 5 separate pieces of legislation, they really fall into 3 different buckets. One involves the TIF project, the second involves a sewer treatment plant, and the third involves Christmas Run Pool. And they're really, that's where it kind of breaks down. The biggest chunk of that, $9.25 million, is related to the TIF project upon Milltown, Oak Hill. And this is kind of one step or one piece of something that's kind of been in process. And what council, maybe not this particular council, but last year's council did do is they passed the TIF ordinance to create the district, which created the revenue stream. So that this money, or excuse me, these bonds will be paid back out of money that we've created a revenue stream specifically to address. Second thing we've done is we've actually contracted for the work to be done. So those contracts are out there, and it started to some extent. Apparently, Joel was up there today, and apparently there is no pavement now between the first roundabout and Milltown Road. So it is underway. So we're now down to the third and final piece of this, is how are we actually going to pay for it? And our proposal is, and this was proposed really all along, is we're going to issue bonds to cover that, and those bonds will be repaid through the revenue stream created by the TIF. And again, the whole idea of a TIF is it, as opposed to tax revenues going into the Wayne County Treasurer's office and then being split up from there, is we redirect the tax revenues from that project and they go straight towards repayment of these bonds. So that's that first bucket, and that's the biggest chunk of that. That's, again, $9.25 million. The second bucket is the sanitary sewer. That's $3.1 million of that. And again, that's, again, Mike First is not here today, but he was last meeting. And those are just repairs that are needed as part of getting that plant back to fully operational capacity, which it isn't right now. And then the third one is for $5.5 million for Christmas Run Pool. And again, that project's not been approved yet, it's been budgeted, but there's a difference between being budgeted and being approved. So this council is going to have to actually approve the expenditure of that money. And Andre's proposal was that while we're doing this bond work, it'd be nice to have the mechanism in place to fund that project as well, if council should vote to do that, which, again, we are going to bring a proposal to council for that, but it's going to be up to council to approve it or not approve it when that time comes. So that's my little recap. I know Joel had the nerve to go on vacation last week or last 10 days, and he did not get, I thought there would be time on the beach to put together a short report to council. He apparently didn't think so. So he wanted a few minutes here to give you an update of what he normally would have sent out toward the end of last week.
Thanks, Bob. Hopefully a little shorter, but a couple of things I think are related to some items that you are all considering. So if you bear with me just for a few minutes. There has been ongoing meetings with OHM, the contractors and other city departments as they finalize the pool design. So that is happening. So if nothing else, we'll have a pool design here in not too distant future, and final numbers and things that then can be considered by council. Just beside the spring, the nets are up and mowing and treatments are going on up at the soccer fields. So I think they're in the process, or they will be de-winterizing, or they did last week.
Yeah, they're up.
They're open. And the bathrooms, that's always a big thing we get when people start showing up for the bathrooms. I did just want to mention that we had some volunteers from Grace Church and our recreation staff and some other family members show up to mulch parking lot flower beds. So just want to let everybody know that. And this one's associated with the patio and the additional allowance up there, expansion of the use of those facilities. I mentioned some of this, but this is an updated number. 34 events have already been hosted at Freelander Chalet. This is all information from Rec and from Ashley. 121 events are already scheduled for 2024. All the Saturdays are basically booked. Sundays also through September 1st. And there's 31 events already scheduled for 2025. So people are calling 18 months in advance to schedule up there, and we're doing no advertising at all. So I think this expansion of the ability to use that outdoor area would definitely be a benefit up there. And I wanted to mention there's a new nature series in partnership with the Wayne Soil and Water Conservation District and the Friends of Wooster Memorial Park. So it's something I assume that I'm putting together with them. And just one note, in case you hear anything, Ashley and Heather and Michelle, they met with the Y to talk about the 2024 pool season. The natatorium is going to be closed in June, at least the closed June to at least the end of July 24. So there's a partnership going on there with us to accommodate some of the YMCA programming at Christmas Run and Freelander during that time, just in case that closure extends also all the way into August. So I just wanted to mention that. That there's some coordination going on to make sure that is available. Since I was gone, I haven't had a chance to go over this with Ashley and Phil and their crew. We did Ashley put together a lot of information sort of historically on the pool when things started being shared with council, project memos and updates and budgets and things like that. So we're going to put all that together, share that again with everybody. So I apologize, I just haven't had the chance to go over all that information, but actually quite a bit of information that we've had over the years. Bob mentioned Oak Hill Milltown improvements are underway. It's good. The Christmas Run pickleball courts that started work, I think last week, down at Christmas Run, so that's going on. Working their way up Christmas Run for the sanitary sewer replacement. I think they're about at Catalina, at least they were last week. They were at Catalina.
Between Catalina and Skylark now.
So they're progressing there. The sewer line that we call the Walmart, that's going to basically eliminate the Walmart lift station from Cleveland Road all the way up over to Friendsville. I believe they've made it all the way over to the lift station at this point.
It's a matter of making a final connection. Right. It's going to be today, but great.
So that whole area now has availability, so the entire area north of that. I know there's some developers and other people interested in that now that the sewer could be potentially available. So we're going to start. We had a conversation about that area, Johnson and Phil and I and Vince right before I left on vacation with a developer. That's an area of interest to them. So we'll see how that goes. And speaking of the one piece of legislation for some of the wastewater treatment plant, the last piece, at least for this year, will be the biosolids. And we've been that here in probably the next 2 weeks, I think, week or two.
This Friday we start advertising.
So, but there's a lot of projects going on that you guys obviously are aware of and have already allowed us to move forward with. The VLR number 5 is almost done. VLR 1 and 2 in the headworks, that's awarded. They're mobilizing equipment right now. Putting the last emergency covered that on one of the digesters right now, and the other two will be part of the process that we're bidding out right now. So there's been some complaints of some odors. That's because the digester covers were off as we're doing some of these improvements. So they're trying to make some adjustments to try to limit that as much as we can. hopefully get the cover on and that'll resolve that pretty quickly. In order to do the improvements, we had to remove the covers. It's unfortunate, that's kind of part of the plan right there. So those improvements are ongoing. The Lyric Theater finally submitted they're getting ready to submit their final exterior renderings. So hopefully that'll be the last piece. We've been giving them phase approvals to move on that. And Jim Monet's been helping with, trying to help with the design on that as well. So just so you know, that's moving forward. We did clean up a property, the building standards did on West Vine Street. That's been a long-standing problem. It's been to court on multiple occasions, so I know it's a long process, but they finally got through that and are getting ready to demolish that building over there. So just wanted to let you know that. So that's about it. Everything else I've shared with you recently. Farmer Boy apparently is evaluating the building after the fire caused the damage up there. So we're working with the contractor, trying to get the electrical service safe so they can get that back on. Don't know the final disposition, but that's ongoing right now. There is some work going on. We've been working a lot with the Housing Coalition, Community Action, 180, and others, Municipal Housing, Salvation Army. There's going to be some changes to the way their living room and their weather shelter moving forward. Another group is looking to provide some other facilities. We're encouraging them, meeting with them to provide those services and wraparound services of the professionals. So we don't know all the details on that, but we'll definitely keep you in the loop as that moves forward. Wanted to make you aware of that. And as far as some of the housing, there's some housing going on. Some of the developers are continuing to ask us for additional incentives to try to make things work. So in addition to some of the zoning that Vince and the Planning Commission and the steering committee is looking at, we are looking at, Jonathan's evaluating some potential changes to the CRA, maybe some other incentives, maybe density, maybe caps on rent and sale price of houses, those kind of things. Maybe we can open that up a little bit. So we're just gathering ideas, some of the communities are going, have some of that to present to you all. I did want to mention that at the Dairy Queen is the Western and North End. They have submitted some renderings to redo that site. Campbell Oil bought that and redo it. Basically, just put a Dairy Queen back there again on that side of the road. They're going to do some things that we believe will improve the traffic, get it off the road, and some lanes there. That'll improve some of the stormwater there and improve the buffering with the adjacent. We know there's some neighbors there that seem to be concerned, but everything that's been proposed will actually improve what's there. It'll just be a new Dairy Queen on the site with the Dairy Queen plus currently that. And the first of our wraps that'll go around some of our utility boxes for the traffic signals, or the first one of those is going to be design review downtown. This one, they did a contest, so we're going to start with one. It has to go to the design review board. This one is at the corner of West Liberty and Green. So that'll be the first one. See how it goes. Do a little test subject there. And that's all I had time to put together for the meeting tonight.
Well, thank you. It's a good thing we didn't give you any more time. We might still be here. All right. Well, we have no petitions. We also have no communications from the public in this portion of the meeting. We have no committee reports, and we have no public hearings, so we will jump right into unfinished business. So, Ms. Hamilton, if you will read our first piece of legislation this evening.
Ordinance number 2024-06, an ordinance amending the annual appropriation ordinance and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, thank you. Mr. Abernathy, this is yours to introduce.
Yep, so we have, in essence, a bunch of grant money that needs to be reallocated, moved around. Jonathan, I know you're kind of sitting way over there. Anything you want to add for those that weren't here last meeting?
Thank you.
Basically, just with our ability to have secured the CHIP grant for all of Wayne County, it's a program that the city administers for the county. In addition to some housekeeping items of some grant dollars that were not fully expended last year, is we're still waiting on some processing from our partners at the Viola Startsman Clinic. This just reappropriates that, and that will allow us to be compliant with our own financial regulatory requirements before we would accept any invoices on these projects. We did receive final sign-off from the federal government in terms of being able to start expending our 2023 CHIP grant, but we've not made any commitments yet, waiting to get through the appropriation process.
Okay. I'll open it up for questions and comments. All right, I don't see any reason that we would need to go to a third reading, so I will motion to suspend rules.
All right, motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Abernathy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Malta. Ms. Hamilton, you please call the roll on the vote to suspend the rules.
Myers.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Guzzo.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes. All right.
Then I will motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Abernathy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Gaffey. Ms. Hamilton?
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
Mr. Malta.
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
Mr. Guzzo.
Yes.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes. All right. Ordinance 2024-06 has been approved. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll read the next resolution, please.
Resolution number 2024-23, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for resurfacing urban paving within the city of Wooster and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, thank you. Ms. Warden, the floor is yours.
Thank you. If passed, this resolution gives ODOT consent to resurface the pavement with a fine-graded polymer asphalt concrete overlay that is known as Smooth Seal, along with portions of Route 30. By applying the Smooth Seal to the roadway, it reduces operating costs for the city and also increases the lifespan of the surface. Thus reducing, our maintenance, taking the maintenance guys off the road for various other projects. This is fully funded by ODOT, so there's no cost to the city, and it is expected to take place in the summer of 2025. So I would like to move this to third and final reading this evening, please.
All right, motion to suspend the rules of council by Ms. Warden. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Knappich. All right, we call the motion to suspend the rules, please.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Guzzo.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
All right, we have suspended the rules of council. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Huzay. Please call the roll, please.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Guzzo.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
All right. Resolution of 2024-23 has been adopted. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll read the next ordinance for us, please.
Ordinance number 2024-07, an ordinance levying special assessments for the improvement of Melrose Drive between certain termini by grading, draining, widening, paving, resurfacing, constructing curbs, gutters, a multi-use path, sidewalks, and driveway approaches, installing storm sewers, catch basins, manholes, water mains, fire hydrants, and traffic control signs and devices, and acquiring any real estate and interest altogether with the necessary appurtenances and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, thank you. Ms. Warden, floor is yours.
Thank you. So this ordinance is a request to levy assessments to the property owners for the improvements that have been made on Melrose Drive between East Milltown and East Smithville Western Roads. And as Ms. Hamilton stated, it is the improvements that are listed in the title of the legislation cover exactly what the assessments are going to be for. Back in 2021, the resolution of necessity was passed by this council, well, the previous council, and an appointment of an equalization board was created or was established. In 2022, the Equalization Board reported, their report was approved by council and authorization to advertise and award a contract was granted. At the time of the project was proposed, the estimated cost was $4,382,500. The final cost of the project, after all the work was done, was actually lower than that at $4,191,601.84, which is $200,000 less than the original estimate. So that is good news for the property owners along this portion of roadway because it is a lesser assessment that they're going to be charged. So the portion of the costs that are paid, or that were paid by a grant received by the city, leaves the remaining amount to be assessed at $534,664.20. The property owners will, pending council's decision this evening, can expect to receive their assessments in the mail sometime in the next few weeks. I know, is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah, Mr.
that is
Rice,
correct.
we have to approve it before we can bill
Absolutely.
people for it, so, which makes sense. And then the assessments can either be paid by cash or check within 30 days of passage, or the property owner can choose to make 15 annual installments with an interest rate at 6% per year. And as I referenced, Mr. Rice is here if anyone has any questions. But I plan to move this to third and final reading this evening in order to expedite the process.
All right, so I hear that you've motioned to suspend the rules of council and place this on third and final reading.
Yes, sir.
All right, is there a second? Second by Mr. Myers. Ms. Hamilton, will you please call the roll?
Malta.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Guzzo.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
All right, well, the rules of council have been suspended. Ms. Warden, do you have a motion for us?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Myers. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll.
Malta.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Guzzo.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
All right. The ordinance has been adopted, thank you. We'll move on to the next 5 items that we had much discussion with 2 weeks ago. But before we do, Ms. Hamilton, if you'll read ordinance 2024-09 for us, please.
Ordinance number 2024-09, an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of bonds in the maximum principal amount of $4,030,000 for the purpose of paying costs of improving and expanding the city's sanitary sewerage system by constructing and reconstructing sanitary sewers, force mains, and lift stations, together with all necessary appurtenances thereto, and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, thank you. Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
Okay, this is the issuance of debt going towards our sanitary and sewage system, and I believe Mayor Reynolds gave a pretty good preview of this earlier. My understanding is that this station is currently not operational. Is that what we heard earlier?
Yeah, there are 3 sewer lines being installed with these lines. The Christmas one is close to completion, or what? 3/4.
Yeah, I would say 3/4, yeah.
Okay. And then I did see on this one that it was a little over 4 million. I thought I had heard earlier that it was, we were kind of, the sewer project was 3.
So this particular, the TIP is paying for 3 sanitary sewer lines. One is to service the spring run development project there within the 92 homes or so. One is for West Northtown, Gravity
Okay.
area, and the third was that Christmas run.
Okay.
So there's a lot going on here.
Okay. Okay.
And clarification, I think the 3 million is for the sewer plant itself,
Got it. Okay.
which is a separate matter.
It's going later.
Okay. So this is part of the, okay, got it. This is part of the TIF project.
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes the language looks like one and it's not, okay. So, okay.
This one's TIF, next one's TIF, and then number 7 is TIF.
Okay. I'll open it up for any questions from council or comments.
And Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Abernathy. Sorry I wasn't here last week for the discussion regarding these things. I did get your email. Thank you for the overview regarding debt in the city. So I did follow everything that went on, so I should be pretty well up to speed. Having been, on the council for the last 10 years and been going back to when I didn't even know for sure to spell TIF because I wasn't sure what it was. We've been talking about this a long time. One of the, just for point of clarification, the whole definition of a TIF is that the city puts the money out in advance with a predefined method of repayment through the property taxes that'll be derived from the benefit of the development. Really, a TIF doesn't work any other way. You have to put the money out in advance in order for the development to happen in order to collect the money. So this just is kind of the way it's always been structured for the TIF, again, we've had lots of discussions over this. Jonathan, if he's here, painstaking detail on somehow how this stuff works, and Andre and our city attorney making sure that we were at very little risk on this situation, that we had very well organized, predefined, detailed understanding of how the money would get paid back. So unlike in commercial, and I know you're very experienced in commercial finance with businesses, those are repayments are sometimes uncertain based on if the business were to continue to succeed or not. When we're talking about municipal bonds and loans, we have a reasonably good assurance of repayment through tax revenue, so it's a little less risky than on the commercial side. So anyway, I'm in support of all the TIF things, but I just want to let everybody know I did follow this, and I'm ready to support it tonight.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else? If not, do you have a motion for us, Mr. Abernathy?
No, I'd like to go ahead and let this go to a third reading.
All right, very good. All right, Ms. Hamilton, if you'll read ordinance 2024-10, please.
Ordinance number 2024-10, an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of bonds in the maximum principal amount of $565,000 to pay the property owner's portion in anticipation of the collection of special assessments heretofore levied of the cost of improving Melrose Drive between certain termini by grading, draining, widening, paving, resurfacing, constructing curbs, gutters, a multi-use path, sidewalks, and driveway approaches, installing storm sewers, catch basins, manholes, water mains, fire hydrants, and traffic control signs, and acquiring any real estate and interest therein required thereby, altogether with the necessary appurtenances thereto, and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
Okay, I don't want to be redundant. This is all kind of all together here, so again, I'm just going to open it up to council if there's any questions in regards to this one as well. All right, this is part of the same bond issues.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to, again, every bond issue, I'm going to go through the three-read process. So I'm going to go ahead and...
Just leave it on second reading?
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you. We'll say it's had its second reading. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll read the next ordinance for us, please.
Ordinance number 2024-11, an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of bonds in the maximum principal amount of $5,500,000 for the purpose of paying costs of constructing, furnishing, equipping, and otherwise improving a municipal swimming pool and related recreational facilities, and improving the site thereof, and together with necessary and incidental appurtenances thereto, and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours again.
Okay, this is for the swimming pool on Christmas Run. This one had some of the most debate, and I don't intend for this to have debate this week. The surveys through the city of Worcester certainly showed that this was very much something that the community wants. I think maybe the only discussion we may want to have is the ordering of the way we would want to do it. I know that President Sanders had suggested maybe we would want to consider having the plans first and then maybe doing the bond, but I also understand Mr. Doherty wanting to have more of the purchasing power, having it all together. I don't know if we want to have that conversation. Andre, I don't know if it makes a difference if they're all together.
Just some economies of scale as far as costing.
Okay.
And stuff, and then sizing of the issue.
President Sanders, do you see a benefit to having the plans first and then maybe selling the,
No, I think my original question 2 weeks ago was just simply, if this was to be approved and then it didn't move forward in the future, what was going to be the complications for Mr. Doherty in terms of having to backtrack that? From my standpoint, I have no dog in the fight on either side of this thing, other than the fact that just, I didn't want, like I say, my question was just simply to make sure that we weren't going to unduly create an issue with approval of this and then not approval of actual purchase.
okay.
Andre, in order to make it easier for Chief Fisher to find you, where hypothetically would you go with the $5 million? If we didn't use- Hypothetically, just, yeah.
It's very warm
Yeah.
over there.
Yes, Barb?
Ms. Knappich?
I did have a couple questions on this. Now, we can go ahead and get the bonds, but we can spend that money, how do I put this, in different segments. For example, we can take part of that money and go out and get some plans made and then figure out, looking at whether or not it's feasible economically to go forward.
We already
with that.
approved the money for the plans.
Yeah, the drawings are in process.
Okay.
That was in last year's budget.
Yeah.
Okay, gosh, I completely missed that.
Okay,
I mean, I
you
just
missed-
didn't remember.
okay.
I didn't miss
No
it, I
problem.
didn't remember it. And, okay, well, then in that case, I was around on council back when Christmas Run almost closed down, and so it's pretty near and dear to my heart, and I know how much blood, sweat, and tears went into it by the people of the community, and how much personal money went into it in fundraising, and I am 100% in support of this project. I know it's a lot of money, but it just provides such an amazing service to so many people.
Okay, any additional questions or comments?
All right.
Then
Well, if not,
Then we'll move it to third reading.
You leave it on.
We'll leave it on
on
second
second,
reading
okay.
and we'll
We'll have a
Yeah.
third reading.
we'll have a third reading, yes.
okay, that's what I thought you
I'm
meant.
still working on the language.
I'm still looking.
All right. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll read ordinance 2024-12, please.
Ordinance number 2024-12, an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of bonds in the maximum principal amount of $4,655,000 for the purpose of paying costs of improving streets and roads in the city, including Oak Hill Road, Milltown Road, and Commerce Parkway, by purchasing a right-of-way, constructing, reconstructing, widening, grading, draining, paving, creating a roundabout, and otherwise improving, together with all necessary related improvements and appurtenances thereto, and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right. Mr. Abernathy, floor is yours again.
Okay, so this is for the issuing of the debt for our roundabout going up on the Oak Hill Milltown area. Don't think that there's a lot that needs to be said about that, seeing as the road's closed.
Can't stop.
Can't stop it, it's already started. So unless John wants to add anything else to the conversation, which it doesn't appear that he does, I'll open it up for any questions or comments. We'll go ahead and leave it on second reading.
All right, well, it has had its second reading, and we'll move on to ordinance 2024-13. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll please read that for us.
Ordinance number 2024-13, an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of bonds in the maximum principal amount of $3,100,000 for the purpose of paying costs of improving and maintaining the city's sanitary sewerage system plant, including upgrades to the biosolids, biogas, and headworks systems, together with all necessary improvements and appurtenances thereto, and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, Mr. Abernathy, floor is yours again.
Okay, so here's the $3.1 million one that's not the TIF. So now I've got my stuff straight. So thank you, Mayor Reynolds, for teeing this one up earlier. So I don't think that there's much more that I can add that Mayor Reynolds added earlier. So again, I open it up to council if there's any questions or comments around what the mayor had explained earlier. Well, I'm going to make this real easy. We're going to leave that
Leave
one
it
on second reading.
Very good. All right, well, we have gone through those 5
Much faster than the last meeting.
fun-filled pieces of legislation. And with that, we'll move on to new business, which at this point will be introduced by Ms. Knappich. But first, we'll have Ms. Hamilton read it, ordinance 2024-08.
Ordinance number 2024-08, An ordinance amending Chapter 160 bidding procedures and contract requirements of the codified ordinances of the City of Wooster, Ohio by increasing the amount of the limit for competitive bidding.
All right, thank you. Ms. Knappich, the floor is yours.
Yes, this is a request by the city that we increase the amount that they are allowed to bid on from 50,000 to 75,000 without, just to raise that. In any event, I do have some questions with this piece of legislation. In last council, this was brought up in another form in order to get council to increase the amount that the city could spend consistent with changes in state legislation. And from 50 to 75%. How does this piece of legislation differ from that?
Yeah, so the last time we came, all we did with the current, all we did was request it and to conform with the way the Ohio Revised Code had changed. We just changed the number in our legislation. It said 50,000 to 75. That was both council authorization and bidding threshold. What we did here was we left the council authorization at 50. So council's still going to see everything exactly like it always has. The only difference is the bidding now would be raised to 75. So that would save us money and it entirely due to inflation and increased costs, which is why the state also increased their bidding threshold too. So an example would be, we came to council and we had to get special legislation to authorize flooring at the community center. Because we were trying to get quotes, we only got one quote back. It was over 50,000, but it was less than 75. We were not, we did not have the ability to award that contract, and bidding it would have gained us nothing. It would just lost us time and cost us money because we only got, when we were just soliciting some quotes, we only got one that was interested anyway. So we had to come to council and ask for authorization, enter into that contract without bidding because we couldn't get any other bids. So if this would have been in place, we just would have come to council and said, hey, we got quotes, can we enter into the contract? And that would apply to anything else in that 50 to 75. In the memo I sent, I gave you a list of the typical things we most recently had seen that would apply to that on the second page. So it costs money. It actually costs quite a bit to advertise. It adds at least 4 to 6 weeks to every project. So in these what are technically smaller projects, it just adds time. So council would have the same authority, the same approval. The only difference is we would reduce our time frame from 4 to 6 weeks down to, maybe a week or two, depending on what the project is.
And part of that is opportunity cost. So we get the same project completed, but instead of having to put together a more complete set of plans and go through the whole bidding process and take our time and effort to do that, we can be putting that time into something else. So there's a savings there.
And Joel, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but because council still is holding the purse strings on this project of that scope, $50,000 to $75,000, council could, we bring a proposal to you to spend money on something that we have not taken out to bid. Council's in a position to say, no, we want you to go out and bid this one. Because whatever the nature of the project is, you're in a position to require that of us because we can't make the expenditure without your approval, and you're in a position to put any conditions you want on it. Now, as a practical matter, I don't see that ever happening, but to the extent that you still hold that control, that's not changing.
So essentially, it's just, hey, somebody gives you a quote, rather than saying, hey, we're going to put it out to bid, they're just saying, this is what it would cost.
Right.
Okay.
So one example would be that I listed there was a small storm sewer project that it was going to be over 50 but less than 75. As the legislation now exists, engineering would have to put together an entire set of plans, an entire contract documents book. They would then have to pay to have it advertised. You advertise it for 3 to 4 weeks, evaluate all those before awarding that project. That adds cost, it adds time. Or on a small project like that with just a couple pipes, so catch basins, they could do the minimal amount of design that's needed, get with a couple contractors, get some quotes, and then we would just come to council and see if we can we enter, who's going to enter into contract and spend whatever that was, $50,000 or $60,000, enter a contract with the contractor to get this done. We just.
So we're just shaving down time, basically.
Time and money.
And something else is, we can select the contractors that we have quoted, whereas if we have to bid it, we're at the mercy of the bidding process and whichever contractors choose to bid on it, which, as you know, some contractors are better than others. And whenever you're talking about doing public works projects in the public right-of-way in streets, it's a lot nicer to be able to handpick those contractors so that we get proper maintenance of traffic, signage during construction, and then after we get proper restoration. So that just helps everyone there.
So let me play devil's advocate. If we do that, though, what stops you from going good old boys network then?
Well, I will jump on that one real quick and just say that what we're basically doing is 3 tiers. And remember, the state, and I think Joel covered this, the state actually allows no bid up to $75,000. The real reason for that isn't because of good old boys network or anything like that. It's essentially inflation. The things we wouldn't have had to take to council for bid 5 years ago, the costs are much higher than what they used to be. So what we did is we brought this to the last council, and basically we were told no. So what we've done instead here, this was actually Joel's idea, and I think it's very clever. You go from a 2-tier system to a 3-tier system. Okay, the original system was 2 tiers. The first tier being things under 50,000 didn't need bid, over 50,000 needed bid. We had to come to you for legislation. Now you have 50,000 stays the same. That we don't need a bid. Second one, we don't need a bid, but we still need your approval, which means we have less power than every other local government that's under statutory control. But because we're leaving it that way, because we know that City Council wants to review those things. And we don't want to take that power away from you because you told us that's what you want. But it means we don't have to go through basically this overbearing process of bidding on things that are only higher because of inflation and would have never had been bid before. And then we have the 75 and up, which is still the old-fashioned bidding, which just puts us in line with every other statutory government.
I understand that. And I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm just playing the devil's advocate. Let's say you got local businesses, Dan the van, Chuck in the truck. Well, John likes Chuck in the truck. Every job is going to Chuck in the truck. Dan the van from Wooster wants to get business, but John just likes Chuck in the truck. Maybe he went to high school with him and is just floating him all the business. That doesn't look good on the side of City of Worcester.
So I will answer that.
Okay.
We never do that, and it's not allowed to do that.
Okay.
And so, but like you said, that's just our policy to do that. Secondly, it's all public. We're still coming to you with 50 just like we always have. So if we started to do that, number 2 guy's gonna know because it's gonna be posted in the paper and it's gonna be put on YouTube. So it's sort of self-policing that way.
I think-
And we always try to get at least 3. So like, for instance, the flooring, we tried to get 3. They just.
I'm not beating up on you, John, just an example.
And that's fine, because we have a good answer to it, and in our standard practices, we get the 3 quotes, and if somebody doesn't want to quote it, we at least have an email that we can go back and we can say we offered these 3 contractors to quote it. 2 of them did, 1 said they didn't want to, but we keep that on all these public works projects that are right now under 50, under the bid threshold.
I do a lot of work with nonprofits in our community. As a matter of fact, today with an architect on a project, we had 3 bids because we're required for nonprofits for a grant from the Ohio Mental Health Association. We had 3 quotes for some survey work on a property. One was $7,000, one was $8,000, one was $1,700. The one that was $1,700 had previously done survey work on the lot, and it was Schaefer Johnson, local firm we've done a lot of work with. Would I have just as soon gone to Schaefer Johnson because I know them and I knew they'd already done the work? Yeah, but because of the grant and because of the competitive thing, we had to do it this way. The other thing is, anymore, because we've had inflation, but also construction material costs have suffered inflation even more so. And Mr. Sanders probably knows more about this than I do, and being in his line of work. Sometimes you can't get people to bid on something that's $50,000. For a couple of reasons. They might give a price to John if it's under 50, if they know that he's just giving a price to the city. But if it's competitively bid, they know it's going to go low bid. It's not worth their time. So I understand the reason behind it. I did have one question. There was a cost escalation of the 75 that was built into the Ohio Revised Code
3%.
that Barb had a problem with before, is that?
It's gone.
We had pulled.
Okay. I couldn't find it, I thought, well, but you didn't make a point of it, it just disappeared. That's fine. I think that helps.
3% out.
That-
Right.
So that's no longer part of it, so.
Well, and one of the things I'm looking at is, do we want a three-tiered system or do we want a two-tiered system? And if we want a two-tiered system, do we want it at 50,000 and not pass this? Or do we want a two-tiered system that says 75 and it's 75 across the board? And that was not what the last council wanted. I'd like to have a little bit more information with respect to, you know, we've heard about the floor for the community center, but what other projects have been hung up? I'd like to have, that have been hung up in the past, not just could be hung up in the future. And, because if we're just changing this, and, which I think this muddies the water, quite frankly, but if we're just changing this in anticipation of what could happen, then that's really not a reason why I'm interested in passing any legislation. But if this is a consistent problem that the city has, I'd like to hear from the department.
So that's where this list came from. So we've come to you since that has changed, with quite a few projects that were in that $55,000, $60,000 range. You know, now some of them, and this is addressed in the legislation as well, is where for various reasons there's nowhere else to get another. So the fuel contract, for instance, that's several $100,000. We put that out to bid, and we say, you gotta have a facility in Wooster, we're easily accessible. We go out and bid it, and we spend the time bidding it. Nobody else can really meet the specifications. At some point, somebody might decide to build, you know, a facility, but they haven't. So it's always sandblasting. Not for lack of trying and not for bidding, but we always spend the time and effort to put together the specifications and bid that out. We could simply quote that, you know, at this point. So that happens a lot. I didn't go back and pull up the list, but we noted every time we came, well, here's another one. You know, it was $55,000 that we came. The storm sewer one, the Winkler Drive one, that's one that would have to take extra time to do, and we might not get bids for it. The reason Mr. Myers said a contractor's just not going to go through the effort for something in that price range. And we've had that, John, and there have been projects in that price range that people just are not interested in bidding it, but they'll give us a quote for it if we just reach out to them.
Right. Well, it falls in, when Roger was here too, and I'm sure John will do the same, sometimes you have to combine these projects into a package in order to get people to bid. So you put together like projects for like kind of work to make it more enticing for the contractors to bid, and we can do that. The other thing that can be done, I'm sure that we would never do this as a municipal government, but in commercial world, if the threshold for some of the commercial businesses is $50,000, we do two $24,000 projects in order to get around that rule. So I'm not suggesting we would do anything. We have never seen that in my 10 years that we would. There are things that, you know, that could happen that would get around this. But you're right. We don't want to muddy the waters. I think the proposal they've come up with is reasonable. But now that the 3% is gone, I might be willing to, like you said, maybe just go to the 75 too, so.
Joel, if I could ask real quick, is there a set cost to advertise for bid every time, or does it vary based on the project?
If we only do 3 weeks and advertise it twice,
$400 or $500.
$500 every time we do that, and then it adds the time. Then what the other is, that's a little harder to quantify, is the time that engineering is spending. They put together the contracts for all of our contracts, not just the engineering stuff, but putting together prevailing wage, putting together the contract documents.
Sure.
And that's,
And all that paperwork has to go to the contractor, and they have to sort through it and keep track of that, so it's more work for them, which costs us more.
Right.
For us, it's in the thousands every contract that we would have to do, just when you add up all the man-hours.
So it's in the at least tens of thousands every year at this point that are
more.
something that could be
Absolutely.
off the books at this point, if we were to pass this.
It's efficiencies as well.
Well, yeah.
That's the big.
Absolutely.
Well,
And along that point, I appreciate the compromise solution, but yeah, I don't really see a reason for us to have a three-tiered system. It just muddies the water, and we're gonna see all the contracts anyways in the budget proposal when they come up, so.
But I think we can say, if, provided the council passes this piece of it, we'd be happy to come back with the second piece and to raise the authorization to 75,000 on the approval side too. But I guess we would throw this out there first for approval and test the waters on this, and then again, see what the mood of council is, and then maybe we'll back with the second piece of legislation and go back to a two-tier system.
This is just first reading, so if there was a desire to change that, we could change it.
Yeah, we can amend this.
Yeah.
It's
If
gonna-
someone's interested in amending it to just the 75,000 bid limit, we'd be happy to consider that amendment for sure.
I'm sure you would. Get that passed with this council versus the last council. Got that. I am leaving this on first reading tonight.
I do have one more thing. Could we see how much we spent in fiscal 2023? Is there a way to break apart advertising and maybe, not all your services, but at least some? Give us a $10,000 or $100,000.
Realistically, we can just go to the newspaper.
But realistically, though, I mean, that's not necessarily apples to anything, because at this point, this legislation didn't come to us in the last council, it didn't come to us till late in the year. So realistically, you know, how many bids did you have that fell within this parameter from the point of the ORC being changed till the end of the year?
I think you were looking for just a general idea, what did it cost to do the bids for the under the $50,000 projects? And we could probably come up with, hey, typically it's about 1,200 newspaper ads, 2,000 in their time to do a bid tabulation form and the documentation. You know, X dollars times, you know.
And there's the missing variable.
45 bids.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean that. And there's the missing variable of the fact that people don't want to go through the bidding process, and we don't even know how much we overspent because we couldn't even get people to actually get in the game.
Right.
Excellent. Good
leaving it on
conversation. I
So-
think we'll leave it on first reading.
Leave it on first, all right. All right, well, it's clearly had its first reading. Thank you very much. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll read ordinance 2024-14, please.
Ordinance number 2024-14, an ordinance amending Chapter 539.04, liquor prohibited without a permit of the codified ordinances of the City of Worcester and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, Ms. Knappich, this is yours also.
This is mine also. This is with the beautiful renovations at Friedlander. Some people want to have wedding receptions, and some people want to have other parties, and some people want to have alcohol, which is what this actually addresses, what this piece of legislation addresses, that, and I think it's specifically important under the first section. No person shall possess or drink any intoxicating liquor or alcoholic beverage, including beer, be under the influence of any intoxicating liquor or alcoholic beverage within any park or park and recreation facility, except within Freelander's chalet, which currently is the language, but, and then also, and the adjacent designated outdoor area with a valid permit granted by the Director of Administration or designee. So what as I understand it, with the deck on the Friedlander Chalet, we're looking at that deck area as essentially being a Dora area, not a Dora, but more of a Friedlander outside area, and where people would be allowed to have alcoholic beverages in that particular area. And Ashley, if you could explain some more, that would be great.
Yeah, so since this was passed in 2020, we have had some, I would say about 25%-ish of our rentals include alcohol. So about a quarter of our rentals do. And right now, the way the legislation reads, they can only be inside, so within the chalet. So as soon as those doors are closed, they can't be out on the balcony area, and they can't go outside of the doors of the chalet. So that's only within the inside. So with this outdoor patio area, that will be enclosed, it'll be gated So just kind of like if you go to a restaurant out on the outdoor patio, you would have to open a gate to be able to get outside of that patio area. So it would be clearly marked where you would be able to go. So that's where that designated outdoor area would be. And that is listed on the.
So it's just extending to this
Yeah,
limited
so-
outdoor
so,
area?
Yeah, we haven't had very many issues. The only issue I would say we have had is that some people may just kind of wander outside. And we have supervisors there with every rental that does have alcohol, with every rental that is there anyway. But we do make sure that our supervisors maintain that ordinance and make sure that anybody that does happen to go outside, they are on that right away, and make sure they're inside, so.
So it would be basically like any other outdoor eating area or eating, drinking area for a restaurant. And as you approach the gate, or it would say no alcohol past
Beyond
this
this
point, that
Exactly.
kind of thing.
Which we do, which we have anyway,
Right.
on the door,
On the door.
on the inside.
Right.
So, yeah, this
So-
would just extend it to that outdoor area, just like any other restaurant.
Okay, great. Excellent. Questions?
Yeah, I'm curious, will the addition of the patio increase the rental fee for the chalet overall? And then will that potential increase also be optional, like if you don't use the patio, or how's that?
So for right now, so we don't really have any, we don't have any plans right now to increase the price
Okay.
for that, right, as of right now. That could potentially be in the future, but as of right now, we don't. And we could add it as an option, but we don't, that would just be included in the price of the regular rental. So.
Yeah. Is this going to include the balcony area? Because I guess my concern is I have no problem with the new patio to the north side of the Freelander. I think the outdoor area, or the Fora, was it Freelander outdoor recreational area now, the
Yes.
Fora? I have no problem with extending it to the new
That's what
patio
it's
area.
for.
I do have a problem with it on the balcony over the pool area.
Yes.
Simply just because dropping stuff over the edge into my pool.
Right, so we already do not allow glass.
Yeah.
So that is definitely one thing that we do not allow, is to have anything in glass bottles.
Okay.
Because partially that reason.
Right.
But also, right now, if you have an alcohol rental, you're not allowed outside anyway. So that's a consideration that we are gonna make with our policies and procedures, internally with those.
If they have the other patio, they really don't need to go
Right.
out on the 5-foot balcony.
Right.
Like, Not necessary.
So if the pool is open, I mean, obviously that's gonna
Well,
be an
yeah,
issue on
they can-
Saturdays,
yeah.
more so than a lot of
If
other
it's
days.
open, I guess we're not going to want it out there with alcohol.
Right. And we do have policies that they are not allowed to go into the pool facility if they are drinking alcohol, so.
I know some banquet centers or event centers require like police presence or security. Does the city require that at
So we have,
Freelander for events with
so we have a
alcohol?
supervisor, so we employ a part-time staff. So they are a City of Worcester employee that is on site at all times. So it's either a part-time, it's one of my full-time staff members, or even myself, that's on site.
They're also only 500 yards from the police station if they need help.
And, yeah. And our police department is aware of any rental that has alcohol, so they do drive-throughs
Yeah, that was
as
what I
well.
was going to ask.
Yep, yep.
Good.
Yep, so we'll just send Fisher over there anytime.
Yeah.
He'll be there in no time.
Slide right down.
All right, well, any other questions?
When is the construction of the patio expected?
I believe they were hoping towards the end of May, beginning of June. So we have a lot of graduation parties in the beginning of June, so our first rental that would be able to take advantage of this really isn't until mid-June-ish, so,
The goal
Because-
was before Memorial Day, if they could hit that.
yeah. Yeah, so we don't allow alcohol at high school graduation parties, that's one of our rules, so.
Very good. I like that. That's
Yeah.
And if anybody, you probably don't remember, because this was February 2nd, when I sent a council update, I put a couple of renderings of what that patio was going to look like. It looks but it's a pretty substantial wall and fence around that area.
Yeah.
I think it's a great addition.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I'm actually going to leave this on first reading just because this may be the first that people in the public and the general public are hearing about this, and they may have comments and want to give input. So we have a pool with kids, we have an event center with alcohol. I think this will stay on first reading until the next meeting at least. and then we'll see where we're at, if anybody's gotten any comments or concerns related to them.
Okay, well, thank you.
Very much, I appreciate it.
All right, well, it's had its first reading. We'll move on to our last piece of new business, Resolution 2024-29. Ms. Hamilton, you please read it for us.
Resolution number 2024-29, a resolution requesting that the Planning Commission pursuant to Worcester Codified Ordinance Section 1105.03, review and consider proposed text amendments to the Planning and Zoning Code Section 1109.02 and 1135.02, and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right. Ms. Knappich, floor is yours.
Yes, this is, actually, we currently have legislation that has any type of dispensaries for recreational marijuana on hold. However, now that the state has moved forward in making rules or formulating rules, regulations, fact of the matter is the residents of Worcester voted in favor of recreational marijuana. When the medical marijuana legislation was passed, we had new legislation that included that, gave definitions. I see we have new definitions here for recreational marijuana dispensary and recreational marijuana. I'm assuming those came from the state, those definitions?
They're actually modifications of what we have for our medical marijuana, but they fall in line with the state's definitions. They're not exact.
They're not
They fall in
exact.
line with the state law.
All right, and what changes did we make and why?
They're just in line with how we have the definitions in our code. You don't have exact definitions like that. They actually call it adult use marijuana versus recreational marijuana, things like that. It's substantially the same.
Okay, and from what I can see, and I apologize, I wasn't able to open up the attachment to my packet till this afternoon, so, and it's been a busy couple weeks, but it looks like this is really just adding recreational marijuana and recreational marijuana dispensaries to the current language that is in our laws and ordinances.
It adds one other thing. So it takes care of dispensaries for recreational marijuana and also processing and testing for recreational marijuana. What it also does is it adds cultivation for both of those things, which was not there before, and needs to be there. So it does add cultivation as well.
Okay.
For both medical and recreational.
Okay, apparently I have 2 pages, 1 and no page 2. So I kind of wondered where cultivation and processing came into play. So it adds those 2 things. Then when I did read through the analysis that was given to us by Vince, Manager of Planning and Zoning, it did become more clear. Again, does anybody have any questions, comments that they want to make on this piece of legislation? Simply because I'm going to leave it on first reading, because it's, as with the alcohol and school, now we have recreational marijuana and commercial activities. So I think 1 or 2 people may have comments out there in the public.
I just did want to point out that all this does is send it to Planning Commission. I did want to just, so everyone here understands what we're looking at. When I was requested to put this together, we had sort of a timeline that needs to go in order for, if people are going to put in applications to have dispensaries by a certain time. Those applications open up June 7th. In order to get all this going in time for June 7th, this would need to probably pass tonight. And I'm not saying that to push anybody. I'm just under control of the legislation at this point. I'm just making sure everyone understands what the stakes are at this point and why this was something that I know there are council members who would be interested in having this passed tonight. And all it does is send this to Planning Commission for Planning Commission review. so it doesn't change.
It'll come back to us again.
Yeah, I realize
This just keeps the process moving. I do know that,
Period of time between, you know, that
Correct.
we have to advertise for a planning commission, so,
Yes.
yeah.
and if we miss the
Public hearings are
deadline,
required at planning commission, so we
Right.
have to advertise.
if we delay this and miss the application deadline in June, the state has already said that after that date, there's going to be a 3-year moratorium on new applications. So I'm not saying I want one of these necessarily in our city, but if we want to give the opportunity to at least look at it, we're going to have to move this along so we can go to planning commission. Otherwise, it's basically 4 years out.
Okay, motion to suspend the rules.
I just had a question.
Go ahead.
And it's, maybe this will be filled in between now and when Planning Commission gets back to us, but it really was more to do with the tax revenue that comes back to us from this. I know it's 36% of the 10% essentially is what the municipality realizes. And one of the questions I had is, how does that compare with tax revenue we receive from any tobacco or alcohol sales within the municipality?
I'm only gonna guess it's a lot more. We get about $1,100 a year in tobacco tax, and we get $32,000 a year in liquor permits, alcohol sales.
Okay. So it's a significant difference.
I would imagine so.
Okay.
I mean, based on, I've looked at other, I sent these guys a bunch of other communities, and yeah, it's night and day.
Okay.
Can you share any of those numbers? I
Yeah.
mean, not current, it's
Yeah,
not
no,
necessarily right now.
Yeah, I sent, was it Jewel, you and John, right? I sent that list to, yeah. I can
Okay,
send it out
great.
there with these other places received.
You're looking, I think, at Michigan.
Yeah, it was Michigan and.
Well, there's one in Albany, right?
And,
In Ohio, down by Columbus.
A recreational? don't
No,
think so.
currently it's just medical, but.
okay, yeah, there weren't.
There's-
there weren't
they're
in Ohio.
everywhere.
I was just looking at,
They're
I was looking at the
everywhere.
ones that were recreational.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and those
We
are
don't have
all
those.
obviously out of state.
But with Ohio law, it's not stipulated as to how those tax dollars are used by municipalities. It's up to our discretion. Whereas other states, we were speaking about Colorado earlier, they're earmarked primarily for educational purposes. So it would be up to us to then use those funds.
Well, there is a percentage that's supposed to go to mental health services and drug addictions.
That's true, you're
I
right.
think is that
And I-
before it comes to us or at the money before?
I'm
it
not
comes to
sure.
us or after?
I just know that there is a percentage
Yeah.
that actually,
There is, and I don't know if that's from,
That, I
the
believe
state's
is from
gonna
the
control
state's
that or
portion.
we're gonna
That's what I
control
thought.
that.
That's from the state's portion.
Yeah. So we have to look at that, and of course, with the dispensary, there's no difference in taxation. If it's medical marijuana or recreational marijuana, it's the same thing, taxes are exactly the same. No? Yes?
On the recreational marijuana, there's the 10% tax. I would have to go back and check what it is for the medical marijuana. if
Okay, it's
different.
not as,
I
it's,
think the split is different. I do think.
yeah, I know
split is
the
different,
split is different.
for sure. I'm not sure if it's 10% or not on the medical, but I can check that.
And when this first passed, that was one of the things I was interested in and wanted the city to look at, is how much money is it potentially could the city make with a dispensary?
So I stand corrected. I know I had an exchange with Lucas. And there's no way to tell, but I don't know where you got this spreadsheet from, but Michigan was approaching a little over 70,000 a quarter. And the revenue they were getting.
that's the state.
The state,
Yeah.
statewide. New Jersey was about a little less than 10,000 a quarter. The last quarter of '23. Arizona was 40,000 a quarter. I don't know what that means for the Wooster, but that's the total for the state.
So it's not
For the
much.
state, that doesn't sound right.
It's not much.
The numbers are way greater in
California was
Colorado. I know that.
$160,000 a quarter.
For
Is
the
that per
state?
municipality?
No,
That can't be for the
No.
state.
Because one of the
That's way
articles
too
I
low.
was reading yesterday was saying that Michigan as a whole had 87 million in tax revenue that they were
Right.
looking at
This is
distributing
what the
amongst.
states had
Well,
been.
okay.
Yeah,
I
saw
Okay.
That makes sense, 87 million.
Yeah, all we can tell, we have no idea how much of our sales would be either, but
Right.
remember, whatever it is, there's a 10% sales tax on all sales, and we would get 36% of that. So that's all we know right now. And we'd have no idea if we did have a dispensary, how much sales would be there or not, so.
Sure. Well, let me throw this out in light of the fact that we've been tasked to make a decision preferably this evening versus next in 2 weeks. And I am probably going to regret doing this, but I'm going to suggest that we have a young lady who has signed up to speak in our miscellaneous section, which actually we won't allow her to speak in our miscellaneous section because she doesn't fit the requirements. But in light of the fact that she is going to speak regarding the dispensaries, if you're willing.
You guys have some great questions.
At this point, I believe you called me 4 weeks ago.
I did. My name is Kate Oles. I don't know, do I need to read my address here?
No.
Okay.
No.
I currently am an operator of medical marijuana dispensaries in Ohio. So we have 5 medical marijuana dispensaries throughout Northeast Ohio and 1 in Columbus, as well as we also have a processing and manufacturing facility. We had the pleasure of opening one of the first stores in Ohio, actually on day 1 of the program in January of 2019. And I've had the pleasure of seeing 45,000 patients since then across the state. However, that 45,000 is obviously a fraction of the number of guests that we'll be able to serve in adult use as we see Ohio approving adult use rules. From what I was able to find from state data thus far, there's about 2,000 patients within 10 miles that are currently registered within 10 miles of the city of Wooster. And right now, the closest dispensary is 28 miles away. So people have to travel a great distance to have safe access to these products. And obviously, the most important thing that we as operators want is that people are consuming products that are not only safe for them, but also tested and compliant with state rules. I know there's kind of 2 big things that are being talked about right now, one of which is timeline and the other of which is economic opportunities. So I'll try and hit each of the topics that I think I heard brought up. But the most important, at least I think for this meeting today, is the timeline. The state has only issued RFA, or request for applications, twice since the medical marijuana program's inception. One in November of 2017, and then one most recently in June of 2022. Those have been the only opportunities that cities have had to potentially have dispensaries seek to locate in their towns. And outside of the initial application for cultivators, it was June of 2017, and then December of 2017 for processors. There's never been an opportunity for new processors or cultivators to locate within the state. So this window that will open on June 7th is actually only going to be awarded to existing operators. And the reason the state did that was they wanted to make sure that these facilities were going to be operated by businesses that they already had proved to have a compliance history in the state, and it would be a less intensive licensing process as a result. So the existing cultivators, both large and small, level 1 and level 2, as well as existing dispensaries, are initially awarded what can be dual use or adult use dispensary licenses. And I think, as I heard today, there will be a 2-year moratorium after these initial licenses are issued, save for a social equity license issuance, which the process for has not really been determined yet. So for this June 7th timeline, the existing operators have to demonstrate that they have site control of a compliant location, and the state left the, obviously, ability for local municipalities to decide where they'd want these facilities to be located, how many dispensaries they would potentially want to be located in their town, or if they wanted an outright ban altogether. Thus far, there have not been dispensaries located in Wayne or Medina counties, so many of those patients or adult use consumers have been forced to either purchase on the illicit market or drive to states like Michigan to be able to purchase their products, or drive to, I think the closest dispensary is actually ours in Akron. So obviously there's a need for this, and the state wanted to make sure that, again, these businesses were operated in a way that is a benefit to the community members and not a burden. So a lot of the things that you may see in more loosely regulated states like Colorado and Michigan and Massachusetts, where there's big billboards and signage, isn't something that'll be compliant in Ohio. There's a limited license market, so there'll only be about 250 dispensaries total, and there's very strict regulations as it relates to advertising and marketing and things like that. Even when an application is submitted for June 7th, the state will have a lottery process to when and where the operators will kind of rank. And because you can't have two dispensaries within 1 mile of each other, it's likely that a lot of the phase 1 applicants will kind of get booted out and be forced to go into phase 2 because dispensaries may eliminate each other depending on where operators rank in the ranking. So you'll have that June 7th issuance date, and we'll need to see licenses being issued by September 7th of 2024 to stay on track with the state's timeline, which the state has every intention of delivering. So it's likely that we'll have an idea of where these facilities will be operating very soon thereafter. There will be a phase 2 of the application process. So based on how many operators are not able to find viable locations in phase 1, you'll see a larger pool of phase 2, but again, it will all be issued to the existing operators in the program who have the compliance history as well as familiarity with the security regulations, the operational requirements, the state inventory tracking system. I currently operate 5 states for both adult use and medical in my current company where I serve in a regional role. And Ohio has a history of being the strictest state when it comes to regulations. But I think it's the reason that they've done a very good job in how these medical facilities have been regulated. We've never seen a city repeal its allowance of medical dispensaries because they seamlessly blend into the community and most people never even know they're there. The state has every intention of adult use dispensaries operating in the same way, as well as dual use dispensaries, which is where operators are allowed to have both medical sales as well as adult use sales. I think that's everything on the timeline. Does anybody have any questions, timeline specific?
No, but that was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. I know taxes was the other thing that got kind of talked about. Obviously, the benefits of the facilities is the creation of jobs. I would expect that an average dispensary would add about 30 to 40 jobs in the community for each location. And those jobs range from security to operations to management. And most facilities like ours do a lot of promotion from within. So all of our management team members have started with us in one role and have grown and developed into their roles and subsequent roles in compliance and marketing and administration. The other is obviously the host community fund. So right now, medical sales only have a state sales tax, so there's not any additional economic incentive to communities to host the medical dispensaries because they only have that state sales tax. And there's also some discussion about how the state can continue to incentivize people to be in the medical program. So I'm not even sure that that state sales tax for medical purchases will stay long-term. The state may end up eliminating that and treating it like traditional pharmaceuticals, which aren't subject to a state sales tax. So that 10% excise tax on purchases is only on adult use cannabis products. So only what a guest who would be over the ages of 21 would be coming in to purchase. On average, I would say a healthy dispensary's revenue would be expected to be between $10 and $15 million a year. Let's say on the side of a $15 million store, you're estimating to see over $500,000 in potential economic benefit to the community where these facilities are hosted. And when issue 2 was being drafted, that was a huge thing that the writers who were putting that together wanted to make sure that this would benefit the communities where these stores were. We saw with the first couple rounds of licenses that cities are concerned. The last thing they want to do is pass something that will become a black eye for their town. So there were a lot of moratoriums, a lot of bans, but then you ended up with very concentrated areas where there were dispensaries, not widespread access across the state. So by making sure that a third of the revenue really ends back up in the city's hands, it serves as a highlight to the community and really a benefit for them to have some additional funds that probably don't come by every day. And then last but not least, something that I think people don't really think about when dispensaries come into town is actually the heightened security that you see from surrounding the immediate vicinity of these stores. The dispensaries have state-of-the-art, very high-tech security systems. I have a store in downtown Columbus, and while we don't have security concerns from anyone guest coming into our stores, we had a lot of requests from the local police department asking for camera footage because they know that our cameras are the only ones you can see license plates from, even from the street, if we have an angle reaching that way. So by having a dispensary in the vicinity, there's the perception from the public that this is a heightened security area where there is either security in the parking lot or in the facility, and that serves really as a deterrent for crime because the security measures are so intense. So that's the kind of gist of what the economic opportunities look like. If anyone from council or the administration would ever have any interest in seeing a medical marijuana dispensary, right now only medical guests are able to come into the stores and you have to have a card, but we do have the ability to submit to the state for approval to get people to come through and see the way these businesses operate. I think a lot of times it's something people don't have an understanding of until they see it. And we'd be happy, it's a little bit of a drive, but to have anybody through any one of the dispensaries really to see what this business could look like in the community.
So I have a question for you. 250 licensing. So you're here tonight in Wayne County, in Worcester. You've clearly done the demographics, some perspectives on potential. Is that where that 10 to 15 comes from?
The 10 to 15 is what I would say is healthy for any dispensary that I think an operator would look to place their business in. So obviously Wayne County does not have any dispensaries. The thing that really can change that number is how concentrated these dispensaries become. And things that I have seen in other markets is where cities will actually limit the number of dispensaries in their town. There's only so much economic opportunity in one place. If you have 10 dispensaries in one town, is the city really getting an additional benefit from doing so? So I believe Streetsboro is another community in Ohio that recently passed legislation where they'll only be permitted to have 2 dispensaries there. And that obviously changes the economics for the store. Alternatively, I operate a dispensary in Worcester, Massachusetts, and in Worcester, there is not a license cap either at the state level or the local level, and there's over 50 dispensaries in one town. That $10 to $15 million number is very different in a town like that. But I would say 10 to 15 is healthy and probably what a business would seek to achieve.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
All right.
I've thrown a lot at you, so.
Extremely helpful. Thank you
Absolutely.
very much.
Thank you for considering this. It's certainly something that I know is kind of on the cusp of what's happening in Ohio, but I've seen directly the people that are benefited from having these types of facilities, and the thing that I think we all want is safe access. So that's what we're here to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So Ms. Knappich,
I have a
what say
motion
you?
pending to suspend the rules.
All right, motion to suspend the rules,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Abernathy. Ms. Hamilton, if you call the roll, please.
Warden,
Yes.
Boudet,
Yes.
Gaffey,
Yes.
Knappich,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Abernathy,
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
All right. And Ms.
Motion to
Knappich,
adopt.
Motion to adopt, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Ms. Warden? Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll.
Warden,
Yes.
Boudet,
Yes.
Gaffey,
Yes.
Knappich,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Abernathy,
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you very much. I just hope that all the promises of wealth and fame that we're going to get from this is going to be better than what we got out of the natural gas industry over the last 3 years. So we'll see how that goes. All right, well, with that, we have reached a conclusion with our agenda. We have now reached the miscellaneous section. And with that, I think we'll start with Mr. Huzay. Do you have anything to add this evening?
Just hope everybody had a happy, prosperous Easter and is having an equally prosperous Easter Monday, or as we call it in the Polish community, Dingus Day.
Dingus Day, yes.
All right. Mr. Abernathy?
Nothing to add this evening, thank you.
All right. Ms. Knappich?
I have nothing to add, thank you.
Mr. Gaffey?
I also have nothing to add this evening.
All right. Ms. Warden?
I have a couple of things. One, I've gotten a few emails from AEP and other people that monitor our weather, and it sounds like tomorrow is looking to be potentially dangerous weather in our area. So I'd just like to encourage everybody to be safe and, stay posted on what's going on, tornado and hail and all of that good stuff wise. I want to wish Bill Sharon good luck in his retirement and thank him for, I know he's still got a little bit of time left with the hospital, but thank him for his service. And I think that, we at the city owe him a debt of gratitude because he's done many, many, many excellent things for our community and the hospital here. So very grateful for that. The last thing, I just have a quick question for Joel. You mentioned earlier the Dairy Queen project. If I remember correctly, a few years back, we changed the zoning at the corner of Smithville Western and Cleveland Road to allow for a gas station. And I'm just curious, what's going to become of that? Is that something that's in that project or different?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Campbell's going to be, they own some other Dairy Queen, so they're redo the Dairy Queen on one side, gas station.
Okay. I thought that, but I didn't hear you say it, so I wanted to be clear, so, thank you.
Mr. Malta?
I will only add that the tornado alarms worked today at noon. It was
Yes, they did.
12:06 by my clock, but anyway, nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to know.
Mr. Byers?
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say congratulations to Mr. Sharon on his retirement. I know that he and I are currently rooting for the University of South Carolina girls basketball team since we both are graduates of that fine university. So that'll be all I had this evening.
All right, well, very good.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned, thank you all.
I will say, if you hustle home, you catch the end of the LSU Iowa game.
There's 7 minutes left, so I can let you know what's going on.